Hey guys, welcome to the Lineup Lab. Week 1 of Daily Fantasy NFL is in the books. Well, at least on DraftKings. And someone has won $1 million, and it is not me, sadly, or I guess not sadly, for this guy Randy Randerson, who I don't know, but did make a lineup that won $1 million, and which is, awesome for him. And I wanted to take some time just to analyze this lineup and not only talk about what Randy did right in order to win the Millionaire Maker, but also what he didn't do that didn't put his lineup in a situation where he was not going to win. So I'm just going to get right into it. So here's what Randy, I think, did well. One is he stacked Drew Brees with Cooks and Snead at home in a middling matchup. So I would say that the Brees, Cooks, and Snead stack was obviously the stack that was going to win $1 million this week, especially because A, was the top stack, and B, is actually plausible. This is something that probably quite a few people had in their lineups, and by quite a few, I mean like a small fraction. But this is something that I think I probably had a couple of these, but just not with the right guys around it. It wasn't a totally implausible stack, but what I like about a stack like this is DFS players like to see the prime matchups. They want to see Todd Gurley versus the 49ers, horrible D or something. Or it's like, I want to see Julio Jones versus the Buccaneers' terrible pass defense. Or, even the Oakland passing game against the Saints defense that hasn't improved. And what ends up happening is that's fine. That's good logic. Matchup is important. But DFS players end up overlooking these really, really solid plays. And I wouldn't say that Brees, Cooks, and Snead was the theoretical best play this week, but it was definitely a really, really solid play and had sort of depressed ownership because it's against Oakland's D. Oakland is a pretty strong D, maybe middle of the road or up there. And there's nothing, their cornerbacks are good. There's nothing that makes you want to use Cooks and Snead. But it's Drew Brees at home, and Cooks and Snead are really talented wide receivers. And so I think this was just a really smart stack by Randy Randerson here, and I think it was a little overlooked because people are just looking for that really prime matchup. So it's something to look for in the future, Millionaire Makers. Make sure to, think about, okay, who are the talented players who aren't screaming to be played because the matchup isn't good. And also, another key player in Randy's lineup that also has a similar story to that is AJ Green. So, the Bengals really lost a couple of really good skill players in Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu in the offseason. Their great tight end, Tyler Eifert, is suspended. This is a prime situation for AJ Green. And, if AJ Green was facing someone like, the Lions, he probably would have been really, really highly used. But he had a couple things that were happening that I think got a lot of people off him. And I think it might have been a little overreaction. The first thing was Darrelle Revis. He obviously is the Jets' #1 corner. Has a reputation for being really good. But if you're listening to some smart people this week, I think it was Adam Levitan was saying that he did a study on how wide receivers did against Darrelle Revis last year. It turned out that it was actually a pretty neutral matchup. Wide receivers didn't fare especially poorly or especially well against him. So it really wasn't something that we totally needed to stay away from. The other thing was there's some wind worries in the morning. Now, Kevin Roth gave an update. The wind was a little strong, but it said he didn't really totally worry about the passing game. Then there were some pictures of, flags blowing pretty hard. It seemed pretty windy there. And I was actually guilty. I lowered my projection for Green a little bit based off of that. But I think in general, if you see something with the Vegas line where the over-under isn't really moving despite a very clear weather thing, I think you can safely basically ignore it. I remember last year in week 1, I wasn't really on the Patriots because it was supposed to be raining hard in New England, and it turned out the over-under wasn't really moving. It was actually moving up, and I was really surprised. It turned out rain wasn't that bad. It's sports bettors net new, and Rob Gronkowski scored 3 touchdowns. So I'd say don't really overreact on the weather. And the last thing is I really liked how he went cheap at running back. He used Spencer Ware at 4,400 and Theoretic, who I think was 4,000 or something like that. Both guys ended up having big games, and that's something that you're going to get out of cheap running backs a lot more than you're going to get out of cheap wide receivers. If you go with someone who's like a 4K or under wide receiver, like a Tajay Sharp, for example, the best thing you're going to hope for maybe is going to be like a 7 for 70-yard game or like a 4 for 50-yard game and a touchdown. But these cheap running backs can really go off, and I mean, Spencer Ware and Theoretic really, really did this week. I think it's smart to spend up on wide receiver because you end up getting guys like Cooks and Green who are having like 35-plus fantasy point games. And I think a lot of things just went right for Randy. Obviously, that's true if you need to, if you're going to win $1 million. But also, I just want to point out a couple things that Randy did not do. One was freak out about CJ Spiller being inactive and try to put Mark Ingram in his lineup. I think a lot of people saw some inactives this morning, got a little freaked out, thought, oh my God, CJ Spiller's not in the lineup, and Mark Ingram's going to get 5 catches and 25 carries. But I think overreacting like that can really kill your lineups because in the end, usually it doesn't work out that way. Teams don't like to just go with one player all the time, and I think sometimes people just overrate news and or rhetoric or something like that, and just play a player too much or boost him too much because of that. And I think you should take all news with a little bit of grain of salt, and just don't overreact. Don't be the guy who plays Clive Walford at 100% because Michael Rivera is inactive, and then suddenly, Clive Walford has 1 catch. That news in the morning has to be balanced with everything you decided before, and you just shouldn't overreact to that. The other thing was, I don't think Randy tried to really do too much. A lot of people think, if I'm going to win the Millionaire Maker, I have to, play that guy who's going to be 1% owned. Well, this guy actually didn't play anyone who's run 1% owned. He stuck with pretty chalky people all around. His Dante Moncrief, Julius Thomas, both were players who, they're not totally off the radar. But obviously, Ware and Riddick, Green, Cooks, and Snead, all not off the radar. But he did make a well-constructed lineup, and his main stack was something that was a little against the grain. And I think you definitely do need to go a little against the grain in order to win these tournaments, but you don't have to go like crazy. You don't have to, do RG3 with Corey Coleman and Terrell Pryor or something, or you don't need to do, you don't need to do that, really low on stack. You can go a little against the grain, make a solid lineup, and that lineup can win you $1 million. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the subscribe button. I will do a FanDuel lineup review for the Sunday Million tomorrow night, and look out for that one. And hope you had a good week 1. I think I was hopefully by the end we'll have made a little money. We'll see. And good luck for week 2. Hope you have a good time planning. Hope you had a good week 1, and see you later.